Good morning. Calling our City of Lynn Haven Utilities Workshop, Utility Rate Workshop, to order at 9:04 a.m. Thank you all for coming out to be a part of this discussion and presentation this morning. One of the things I just want to mention to the commissioners, again, this is a workshop, so we're not making any definitive decisions today, but having discussion, getting feedback from our staff, our Finance Review Committee, as well as the public. And so look forward to today's discussion. Of course, this is one of two workshops that we will have, so maybe this is our warm-up, our practice round, and then we get another shot at it at 5 o'clock if you miss something today. Commissioner Perno is running a little behind, but he'll be here shortly. However, we're going to get our workshop underway. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So this morning, this is a workshop, as the Mayor has stated, and it's just really to inform the public so that the public and our residents can understand what we're doing with the utility rates and be able to see everything from beginning to end. I've asked Chris Lightfoot, who is also the Director of Public Utilities, to kind of give us a little bit of background on public utilities. And then after that, our Finance Director will come and the analysis that we've all looked at and been able to massage some will come and give a presentation on the utility rates and where we need to go. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and then we will go from there.
Good morning, Mayor and Commission. I just want to give a brief introduction of the Utilities Rate Workshop and what we plan to accomplish today for both workshops at 9 and 5.
Yeah. Today is also our senior activity day, so they're still using part of our facility since they meet here on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Okay. It's Monday, a little technical difficulty there. So some of our key issues, as we've talked about in some previous commission meetings along with the Finance Committee, for our utility rates. A rate study was completed in 2019. As part of that study, a recommendation on a 4.5% rate increase for both water and sewer funds annually for the next 5 years was suggested. The rates implemented per the plan in 2019 and 2022, but not in 2020 and 2021. So as you can see from that, the previous commissions did not follow the rate studies as suggested. Part of the key issues that we faced with the utilities funds are unfunded DOT projects. It's been around $5 million, I believe, just in 390 widening alone that is not reimbursable, not 100% reimbursable through DOT, and we have no choice to do that. This year, we also have an $850,000 estimated project for DOT for 390 widening, and that's the Phase 4 Mill Bayou Bridge replacement. We have two a force main and a reuse main that we have to bore and relocate as part of the 390 project. The previous fiscal years have also required transfers from enterprise funds to other enterprise funds. Our sanitation fund is the most healthiest of all the enterprise funds and has really been carrying the weight of the stormwater fund, the sewer fund, and our goal, and directed by the Commission, is to get away from transferring funds within the enterprise funds and having each one self-sustained. So what we've been working on, City Manager and staff, along with the Commission-appointed Finance Committee, have been working on internal analysis of what needs to be done to ensure we can operate within a balanced budget, hopefully within the next 5 years. So we've been working on what it would take to increase the rates to get to that balanced budget and develop and prioritize a 5 to 7 year capital improvements list, which will include, repairs at the treatment plants, repairs on our lift stations, repairs in our water distribution system. And the goals of today and moving forward is, like I said, to ensure every enterprise fund is self-sufficient and there's no transfers from one to another, and to be able to fund our reserves for emergency projects such as critical lift station failures, failing water and or sewer infrastructure, and failing stormwater infrastructure. Fiscal year '24 will hopefully complete all of the FDOT projects, and so we won't face any more of those unfunded required projects that are quite hefty in the price tag. So at this time, I'm going to turn over to Ms. Kiki Roman, our Finance Director, and she'll present the rate proposals and what we've been working on.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Lightfoot. That was very helpful. You do have some paper in front of you that you've seen most of this in the past, but I thought it was good for a refresher. The first document you have are the other municipalities, what their base rates are, and you will see that we have the least amount of base rate currently than any of the other municipalities in our area. The second sheet is the capital improvement plan that Mr. Lightfoot talked about. They're broken into 4 different sections: vehicles, equipment, projects, and then the last section, these are grant-funded items. So those items are not included in the analysis we'll be talking about in a couple of moments. But everything above, the vehicles, the equipment, and the projects, are included in the funding. The third page is the same for the water department. Pardon me. Same sort of thing here. We're not including anything that has grant funding, but anything else that Mr. Lightfoot has identified that needs to be done in the next 5 years is included. Per the Finance Review Committee's recommendation, I've given you the number that we would need to increase for the water department to be balanced and the sewer department to be balanced in 5 years. We are not suggesting any change to the sanitation department. That will stay where it is today. The next sheet you have says commercial proposed adjustment. The commercial accounts are a little different than a residential. Commercials are, the bulk of the commercial accounts use the same size meter, and their increase to be able to balance the water fund and the sewer fund in 5 years, their increase would be $38.15. You'll see it highlighted in the kind of rose color there. That would be the increase for fiscal '24. And then every year after that, the increase would go up by those numbers in the rose colored. The bulk of the increase for the commercial accounts is we are proposing that we raise the base fee $25 a month. It was felt that the commercial accounts could shoulder more of the burden than the residential accounts. Having said that, there's less than 600 commercial accounts in the city. There are 10,000 residential accounts. So while we're trying to shift some of the burden to commercial, there aren't enough that we could shoulder the full burden with those accounts. The next page is a residential analysis. Same if you look at the rose-colored. This is the average amount that a residential account uses. A typical average residential account will use 5,000 gallons of water each month. In order to balance the sewer and the water, a residential account would need to be increased $20.15 a month in 2024, and then you'll see $436, $530, $645, $785 in the subsequent years after that. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Any questions from the commission regarding the proposed rate increases for the residential and/or commercial, or any questions from Mr. Lightfoot regarding the capital outlay for the projects for the sewer and water over the next 5 years?
I will mention one thing. I'm sorry that I failed to mention earlier. This does not include any emergency items at all. There's no contingency in here. So should a lift station fail, it's not included. It also does not include the sewer plant expansion. which will be a significant amount of money, but will take several years to complete. That is not included. This is just general operating as of today.
All right. Questions from the commission?
I have one. So I just wanted to know the process that was used by the committee to figure out the amounts for the increase. Like what math was used, or how did we determine what the increases should be per year?
Well, we used the operating budget from '23 as a base. We included the operating budget in '24, including the capital improvements that Mr. Lightfoot has highlighted. I included a minimal amount of inflation adjustment for expenditures and salaries, and then I came up with a number that would get us to 0 at the end of 5 years. So revenues and expenditures were balanced.
Okay. I guess my main concern is that while we do need to raise stuff to balance out the budget, obviously last year inflation was insane. It was at like 9% nationally, but over a period of 30 years, the average inflation rate is about 2.8% to 3%, and these numbers are much higher than that. So I'm worried about us going, we will be contributing to inflation rather than matching inflation.
I wish that were the case. We are playing catch up. Because the increases have not been approved in the last years, we're still trying to catch up from what wasn't done. When Mr. Lightfoot told you that 2 years were increases, he was right. 2 years on the sewer department were increased. Only 1 year of the water department was increased. So we've only increased 1 out of potential 5 years from what the study told us to do for the water department. We increased 2 years out of potential 5. So we're still playing catch up.
Okay.
It may appear that we're adding to the inflation, but we're compensating for what did not happen in the past.
Right. And if we, let's say we voted yes on this, this would just be for 5 years, and then we'd look at it again?
I assume.
We would have to put the parameters on that.
Okay.
What they're presenting to us is a 5-year plan to say in 5 years we'll have a balanced budget, meaning we won't continue to be borrowing from the sanitation department in order to float the sewer department. And so incrementally we'll get to that point in 5 years, and then it'll be for the next commission to reevaluate that. So what this does is, this is a 5-year plan to say this is what we're going to do for the next 5 years. Then after that, it'll need to be reevaluated, or prior to those 5 years, it would need to be reevaluated by that commission. And so what we're trying to do is, I think across the board, is that usually we set out a 5-year plan, but we vote on it 1 year at a time. And so when times do get in a crunch, we vote no, and then over time it puts the city in a bind like it's done now. So for example, Bay County has increased their water rate, which they charge us, but we still haven't increased ours. So we're eating a lot of that for our residents, and they don't realize that. So as Ms. Roman said, we are trying to play catch up on it. But yeah, this is just for 5 years, is what we would, or whatever parameters we put on it is really, they're giving us a presentation and recommendation, but it's up to the commission to determine what it would be. But we're proposing, the committee is proposing 5 years in order to get to that point of a balanced budget. And with other projects coming up, I think we do need to look seriously at this with the expansion coming up, which could be estimated between $30 to $50 million. Headworks, I mean, that's going to be $7 million. We do have some of that money now, but there are big projects that are coming up that we don't want to be trying to play catch up on this side in order to fund those projects on the other side. So, all right, any additional questions for Ms. Roman?
I just want to review for myself.
Yeah.
Okay. The study recommended 4.5% over 5 years.
That's correct.
4.5% each year
Yes.
for water.
Yes.
And 4.5% each year for sewer. It happened once for water and twice for sewer.
Okay. So roughly, if we had stayed on that plan, the increase would have been around, in 4 years, 18%. Okay. But the commission decided not to do that because of the aftermath of Hurricane Michael
And COVID,
And
yes.
COVID.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right.
All true.
So what is the percentage of the recommended increase right now?
Well, you'll see. Let's go to the residential because that's something that more of our customers are interested in. It's 15 cents per 1,000 gallons for the water, 15 cents, and $1.08 per 1,000 gallons in sewer a month.
So that's nowhere near 18%.
No.
Okay, just wondered. Also, I'm not sure that our citizens realize how much water we get from the wells that we don't have to pay for to the county. You know, that's a large percentage, so it's necessary for us to take care of those wells. Chris, what is the percentage of the water we get from the wells?
I don't have an exact percentage, but the
It's
majority,
high.
it's very high. The majority of, this side of the city, the western side of the city is all wells.
Yeah.
Areas like Mill Bayou, Mowat Highlands, et cetera, we get water from the county there, but the majority of our city, and we're the only municipality in Bay County, has our own wells to produce our own water.
Yes. And has the cost of the water to the county gone up?
Absolutely, 3% every year for probably the last 5 years.
But we've not passed that on to the citizens?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay. I'm clear now, thank you.
Additional questions for staff? Any comments from the Finance Review Committee? Former Chairman Frank Hall.
Frank Hall, 1503 Thurso Road, former chairman, now vice chairman of the Finance Review Committee. You know, if you look at it, unfortunately, the enterprise funds were not operated in a sufficient manner, robbing Peter to pay Paul. And unfortunately, if one thing that we did look at was over a 5-year plan because you couldn't hit it all in 1 year, 2 years. We even looked at 7 years. But one thing I just want to make this very certain that you understand that there is no contingencies in there, that if several lift stations or there's capital outlays, it's not in there. So whenever you do vote, that you understand that it was a minimal budget that we recommended for the increases so we could have a balanced budget after 5 years. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to take them. If not, I just wanted to just point that out.
Any questions? for
It's a
Mr. Hall?
balanced budget if nothing happens.
Exactly, in a perfect world. And you know we don't live in a perfect world. So,
We don't?
no, not at all.
So with that in mind, that this is a balanced budget in a perfect world, if we continue with the budget that we have now, knowing that, issues could come about, we would actually be in a more detrimental situation without trying to balance the budget if something comes about versus trying to balance the budget and then we have some type of issue that comes.
Oh, there's no doubt. We asked for 3 proposals, and I think I'm right, but I think if we did nothing, it was, $19 million we'd be in the hole?
Yeah.
If we did something that was where staff was recommending, I think we'd still have a deficit after 5 years at $5.5 million. And, there's unfortunate things that we've had to face with COVID and Hurricane Michael and then the DOT, and we've just got to do a prudent thing and balance the budget and be good stewards of the citizens' dollars.
Any other questions for Mr. Hall?
I have one.
Yeah.
So just for what it's worth, I just want you guys to know I really appreciate this, and I'm just asking the hard questions so that they're asked. Has there been anything done on the flip side of it to cut costs so that our budget is not, to maintain all of this, is not as high as it is?
Well, I think a few things, and again, from a perspective, and that's a very good question. Looking at, from a operational perspective, we did not look at cutting cost, and that is one way that you can actually do it. But if you so choose that you wanted to task it out to see where it's at. But I know that from a, recently you guys paid down on the bond of $2 million, so your debt service went down over the remainder of $500,000. You know, I don't know how much cost that you can really save.
That's right.
You know, from, you know, you look at it, with any department, it's employees. And that's going to be your biggest cost. And, you know, there might be able to nickel and dime, but it's not going to get you it's not going to get you at that balanced budget that you need. Just on the surface, not looking at it, but on the surface, cost cutting is going to be very incremental, and it's not going to get you to that balanced budget.
I will say, when we developed the debt review committee, there was a sort of a cost savings discussion, and we did go through looking at different ways to cut costs. And as Mr. Hall mentioned, over a $50 million, $75 million budget, we maybe been able to cut like $50,000, but it wasn't a significant enough amount to really say we were able to save money, because that $50,000 was over the entire budget. And again, you were just nickel and diming with some of those issues that you were cutting cost on. And I think with the water and sewer, not that I'm saying we should cut costs on stormwater, but it might be more advantageous to cut costs on stormwater than to cut costs on sewer and water, because that's a very delicate and incremental, or, you know, that's something that's necessary that we have to have. And so if we cut costs on this and then we have an issue with sewer or water because a pipe breaks or we don't have someone to fix it in time, that could create a big issue for us, especially if we cut personnel. Because when a pipe bursts, we all want it fixed. I remember we had a pipe that burst in Moore Highlands, and they worked on it all day and all night. But if we didn't have the staff there to be able to do that, then it would have took, you know, a longer period of time. Especially, we even looked at contractors. You know, would it cost less to hire out contractors versus having employees with benefits? And in the end, it's the accessibility of the employees that's available to us on a 24-hour basis versus having a contractor who's working, you know, sort of on a punch ticket and not always available to us because they're contracted to everyone else. So did want to say that's something we have looked at, is going through and looking at, you know, cutting costs, but overall it wasn't a significant enough amount to be able to say, let's try to cut costs in these various areas.
Mayor, can I also state too that all of the budgets probably operating on a pretty lean budget. There's no fat in our budgets. We do a very good job of going through and trying to really schedule out a couple of years when things will happen. You know, if we could, we probably would, but then when you have an $850,000 mandated, unfunded, you know, piece of unfunded money that's put into your budget, there's nothing you can do there but
Right.
cut costs.
Mill Bayou, that Mill
yeah.
Bayou thing Chris was talking about.
Right, with the expansion there on 390, we're having to move all of our utilities and water, but we're not getting any funding for that. Let me say, City Manager and I did bring that up to Representative Griffiths when we met with him recently, that if there's one way that you can help us, you can help all municipalities by seeing if DOT can help us with that, or, you know, some type of relief, or this matching help or something, because it is putting a big strain on various municipalities. And imagine those smaller municipalities that don't have sort of a surplus to be able to help out with some of that as well. So,
Just one more observation, and Commissioner Peoples, I agree with you. You know, always look at the backside for the expense side. Just my personal observation, I don't think the water and sewer is a expense issue. I mean, if you look at it, you got minimal staff. You're not paying the highest salaries out there. You know, again, with this increase is going back from several years, that it was not management's decision and the commission's decision to have a balanced budget, and now you're facing the difficult decisions that you have to do. And again, I want to reiterate, this does not include a lot of cost capital improvements. And I got, you know, there's a lot of Band-Aids out there. So, you know, moving forward, you know, to me, is the first year is taking that hurdle, because that's where the big increase is, and then evaluate on an annual basis or every couple of years to see where you're at for my capital improvement if they see that additional dollars need to be put towards the sewer. So, anything else?
Any other questions for Mr. Hall? Well, I know you've given us your viewpoint from a finance review perspective. As a citizen, with these proposed increased utility rates, what is your feedback, or what are you hearing from some of the other citizens in the community in regards to this?
We're the lowest, and I like paying lower bills, but, you know, it's just like when Gulf Power increases their bills or Publix increases their bread, they don't call me and ask me. I think that it's something that needs to be done. I don't like paying. I'm a believer in low taxes. I'm very conservative in my personal business and my personal finances, but it is what it is, and I support what we brought forward to the commission.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
You said if we maintain our services but do nothing as far as this is concerned, the budget, what is the deficit? I didn't.
And again, we'll make sure with Kiki, but if we did status quo, then no increases whatsoever, was it 19 million? $19 million over 5 years, if we did nothing. So I don't think that would be a prudent thing to do. So, anything else? Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else from the committee that would like to speak at this time? All right, well, thank you, staff, city manager, committee, for your presentation. Thank you for the work that you put into this analysis and the discussions that were there. I was able to attend a few of those meetings and have some discussion about some of these numbers that we see here in front of us, and can certainly say that it was not something that was done flippantly, but certainly thought through and looked at from every angle to see what would be the best for the city and for our citizens across the board. So thank you all for your work and your effort and the time that you put into this. I guess as a commission, what are your thoughts? What feedback are you getting from the community? I know I got a few phone calls after some story came out that we were increasing utility rates, and so I had to clarify that a few weeks ago. So don't go out and tell somebody that we voted to increase utility rates today, okay? Thank you. We're discussing it, but we have not voted to actually do that. That'll be in September for that final decision. I believe it'll be September when we make that.
August.
August, okay. We're in July still, so it'll be in August when we make that decision. And it won't be implemented until, after that. So any thoughts, any feedback on what we're hearing today? Concerns?
I mean, people generally don't want rates increased. That's just the nature of the beast. But I do gotta say, I mean, out of all things that could possibly be increased, this is the one thing that, like, as a citizen of Lynn Haven, every single citizen, every single business uses. Like, you could potentially make an argument about millage rates or stormwater or whatever. You could say, like, well, hey, I got a retention pond on my property or whatever, helping out with stormwater. You can't make that argument here. Like, if you live in Lynn Haven, you use the utilities. If you don't want to use the utilities and you don't like the rates, well, you chose to live here. I mean, that's the reality of it. Although we're going to work the best we can to keep the rates low, obviously, but this is the one that you can't argue that you don't use it. So this is going to be a difficult decision, and I do want everyone to know that I've been running numbers like crazy about stuff like this, and we are definitely listening to you. And I just wanted to put that out there. But like it was stated a few times before, it's the lowest in the county, and 15 cents every 1,000 gallons. Yeah, over time it'll add up, but if we're $19 million in debt 5 years from now, when we've got an expansion coming, sometimes you have to make increases.
I do have a question for Ms. Kiki or Stephanie, whichever one can answer this. So on the residential, the numbers that we're proposing, are these City of Lynn Haven residential accounts, or is this including all of the residential accounts?
No, these are in-city numbers.
Okay. So these are in-city numbers. What would be, do we have any draft on what the impact would be, or is there going to be any increase for those that are not in-city that also use our services?
It will be a comparable, and they receive the same increase. Stephanie?
So the outside city limit residents pay an additional 25%. So I
Right.
would assume that this would also go up by 25% for them, just so that way it's comparable to what they're already paying.
Okay. So as we're being increased as City of Lynn Haven residents, then those that are outside of the City of Lynn Haven that are using our services, there's going to be sort of a comparable increase for them as well,
That's
in
correct.
addition to the 25% that they're already paying.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Thank you.
So just round numbers. If an average residential in-city goes up 17 cents per 1,000 gallons, they'd go up about 21 cents.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. All right. Commissioner Vandegrift, any thoughts, feedback, any communication from other citizens in the community?
Not on this topic, not yet,
All right.
but I'm ready.
You're ready? All right. Any thoughts or feedback from the presentation today?
No, I thank you for the information, and I will absorb it.
Commissioner Perno?
On this topic, I've heard everything from one person told me straight up, hey, if you're going to tell me you're going to raise taxes and you know, or have concerts in the park, you know what I mean? That was exactly the words the man told me. So, you know, and then other people I've talked to are like, well, if you're going to raise taxes, you know, fix my ditch, you know, and then I go and talk to Chris here, you know. So, but overall, when you explain to someone that we're borrowing from one department to the next, anybody who's done a financial statement, you know, to pay, you're borrowing from sanitation to pay sewer, right? That's what we're doing, right?
Yes.
Oh, they're getting revved up over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're you know, the light goes on, you know. It's time. And the county, in meetings that I've sat in over the last 4 years, the county's always said to our former utilities director, how do y'all do it? How do you charge so little for sewer? You know, so we've been told that, you know, that, hey, you know, we've been giving people a very low rate, but it's time to catch up, you know, because we're reaching that point where we have to increase capacity. So we gotta do something. So that's what I've heard, and I'm looking forward to the next show because I was a little late for this one. So
You know, we'll do this all over again at 5 o'clock.
it's
So,
like a Barbie movie.
you know, I would encourage everyone to, you know, review the YouTube before you come back. That way you can say everything exactly the same way you said it, you know, at the morning workshop. So we won't, you know, say anything differently. Okay. Any feedback from the public? I think Mr. Joe Brown, the only one we got here. All right. Nothing today. Okay. All right. So, City Manager.
Just remind that there's another workshop today at 5 p.m. And as the mayor said, we will review it so that we make sure we're being consistent in what we say. And we hope that this workshop has been informative, and again at 5 p.m. so that residents will have a chance to come out and hear and listen and be informative.
All right. Thank you. Thank you everyone very much. See you at 5. Meeting adjourned.